it's not just about recognizing it as a disability and understanding what you need to do to make, to fit the law. It's kind of recognizing if you've got someone that's high performing in your team, making those accommodations that are going to work for them to keep them interested in the job. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today, we are talking about embracing neurodiversity in the workplace and what you can do to adapt your workplace so that you're getting the best out of everybody, really. Whether you give them a label of neurodivergence or whatever, we're all different. Part of the reason we're doing that is because it's Neurodiversity Celebration Week, but also because Lucy and I have been on a massive journey the last couple of years. Both of us have learned a lot about neurodivergence. We have both been diagnosed with ADHD ourselves. We have recognised neurodivergence within our families and friends quite a lot. And actually having that awareness has helped both of us be able to adapt our working styles. And I think that has helped both us and the people around us. So it probably makes us less annoying as well because we get it. We get what we need. And like both of us have in the past potentially been a bit flaky, a bit disorganized, all of those sorts of things. And now having that awareness and that diagnosis, and not everybody wants to go and get a diagnosis. And this isn't about, any of that stuff. I think what it's done for us is helped us understand what our needs are and do something about it. And I think there's a real benefit to doing that in the workplace for everybody. So accepting that we're not robots and not everybody needs the same things at work and has to work to the same criteria. And I can see it. I've got a family member who was in a job for a long time where it was there was no flexibility, very bums on seats. Like if he had to leave 5 minutes early to pick his child up from school, they were funny about it. And the stress levels that he was under all of the time, it was a noisy office as well. I remember his boss saying, a noisy office is a productive office. And it may well have been for him. But for this other family member, absolutely not. And he was desperately asking for adjustments, not realising that's but it was like, I just need some space and time, like somewhere where I can work quietly and stuff like that, and was refused all of it.
That's awful. Because it must have made him feel like he was being annoying.
Yeah, and that he was in the wrong, and now he's in a different role. So he's in a consulting role, still employed, but the workplace is much more inclusive, has the flexibility. He, can work from home when he needs to, all of those sorts of things, and he's absolutely thriving in his job and so much happier, and actually is getting much better feedback than he did in that other role, because he's being allowed to work the way that works for him. And, it's a really, really strong example of it, because I'm really I'm always conscious of this on the podcast that, we're both self-employed. So there's a lot of stuff that is within our gift as self-employed people. But actually my point is that it can still be the same if you are in a business and in an employed role, and that there will be people in your teams that may not have disclosed a diagnosis to you, may not know that they are neurodivergent. And it can be quite hard to know how to kind of still have this corporate structure, but also be able to make some adjustments. So really this episode's about how, if we can be more inclusive in the workplace, how it can unlock kind of that brilliance that you get with neurodivergence, and it can unlock great things for people as individuals, but also can really help your team as well. So, shall I talk by doing a definition? And we did a whole series this time last year on neurodiversity. We did 4 episodes, didn't we?
I can't believe that was last year.
I know, it was a year ago. So we will put links to those in the show notes, because we did one with Amy Polly, which was great, about neurodiversity in the workplace. We did one about autism, didn't we? One about dyspraxia, and then one about our own ADHD diagnosis. But when we're talking about neurodiversity, what we're talking about is a spectrum of natural variations that we all have of how people think and process information. So that's what neurodiversity is. So we're all neurodiverse, the whole population, that, you know, by definition, we're all different. Neurodivergent is where people have a marked difference and have certain traits. So ADHD being one of them, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, OCD, Tourette syndrome, you know, they're all put within this kind of label of neurodivergence. And the estimates are, and I suspect this number will go up over the years as we're all getting much more aware of these things, 15 to 20% of the population is neurodivergent. So actually, if you think about, if you've got 5 people in a workplace, one of them is likely to be neurodivergent, and, you know, scale that up. So it isn't like it's a one in a, you know,
it's not unusual.
1,000. Yeah, it's not that unusual.
And the thing is, it's definitely going to go up, because when somebody gets diagnosed, nearly always identifies other people within that family who are, because it's genetic. There are people that say it's not genetic, but I strongly believe it's genetic.
Well, a lot of the evidence is to show that it is. And, you know, we're not going to go to all of the details. The point of this is understanding what neurodivergence is a really important starting point. But actually, with every neurodivergence, there are strengths as well as what some may call weaknesses or challenges. So, you know, for instance, a lot of people with ADHD can be very creative, have lots of new ideas, can bring energy to a room. Actually, it's not a deficit of attention, it's a deficit of being able to control your attention. So you can be really good at hyperfocusing. So, you know, now knowing what I know now, I now know when I was doing a category review, because on the surface, I don't like data, right? And then I'd get into a cat review and I would be delving down into some dunnhumby data or something, and I would get down a rabbit hole, forget to eat, drink, wee, anything, come out like 10 hours later and have this masterpiece. That was hyperfocus. I didn't know now, but I know now what that was.
I remember before we were diagnosed, I suggested an episode on being all or nothing, because I'm a very all or nothing kind of person.
Yeah. And being able to harness that all is the strength, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember you saying, I don't really know what you mean by that. And I couldn't really articulate it. And then when we were diagnosed, I was like, this is what I meant. Like, you know, like... And that's the thing. It's like, before you understand it, I know that like my all or nothing kind of personality has its real strengths, but also downsides. Because when I'm in that nothing state of mind,
you literally can't do anything. So I would spend a day, like, I can visualize it now, like some of the, like, working from home, because I'd needed to work from home for the hyperfocus, which is part of what we're going to talk about. Like getting that all out, and then the, like, literally not being able to speak to a soul for like the whole of the next day, not being able to like get out of bed, you know, all of those things. It's like, actually, and that's where those challenges come in as well. So it's great, you know. And I think about people, and again, generalizations, but people with autism that might have real great attention to detail and like be able to do like complex, you know, whatever programming of a something or other, you know, all of that. We wouldn't have that if we didn't have neurodivergence. So we've got to be able to harness that. But actually, alongside those great, brilliant, superpowery things that we talk about neurodivergent people having, there are other things that can be real barriers, you know. So for instance, for me, I get easily overwhelmed with noise. If there's like, because I struggle to focus on, and this is where I think it's really hard to explain, like, for instance, ADHD to people. If I'm in an open plan office I think back to when I was at Bakkavor, right? They changed, we moved offices and they changed the layout, and we went from having your own desk to hot desking. And if I ended up on the end, I used to have to get into work early to get the desk that I wanted that was by the window, because if I was on the end of the aisle, I didn't feel safe. Like, I just felt like somebody was coming up behind me all of the time. And again, this is all with hindsight. I didn't know that this was part of the neurodivergence. I couldn't stand, there was one particular person that really talked really loud on all their Teams calls as well. But I couldn't help but hear every conversation that was going around me. And I was just not getting anything done. And I remember years ago, we had a massive debate about whether it was acceptable to wear headphones in the office or not.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the, I need to wear headphones brigade, and other people were like, it's antisocial, this, that, and the other. But I totally get now. And if I think of, some of the analysts and stuff like that, I imagine, they have an element of neurodivergence in them, and they needed to block out all of that sound. And it's things like that. It's recognizing that there are different things that people, although they have all this brilliance in their brain, it sometimes, there's what would be a challenge. And it's funny, before we hit record, one of the things me and Lucy were talking about is actually neurodivergence comes under the UK law, under the Equality Act of 2010, because it's defined as a disability. And you've got a bit, talk about how you feel about that.
Yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable. And like doing episodes like this and talking about the fact that I've been diagnosed with ADHD, slightly worries me, because I think, well, what if people judge me and don't want to work with me and see it as like a negative? Because disability makes me feel like I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do. But I do what I do really well. Because of that disability. Because of the disability.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that I've been able to harness what I've got. Being diagnosed has massively helped me. And, Sam says, and, even family members who kind of didn't understand why I was doing it and thought it was a bit stupid, have become more aware of neurodivergence. And it's obvious that it's within my family.
Yeah.
And within my husband's family as well. And, Sam, it's massively helped our relationship as well. Yeah. So it's not just helped me from a working perspective, it's really helped him. He says it's really helped. He thinks I'm more reasonable now because I understand my brain. And I'm like, well, I think you're more reasonable because you understand my brain, which is interesting.
It's interesting because what you're talking about is that you have made adjustments at home, and that links completely with the workplace thing, because Sam is putting reasonable adjustments in place for you because he understands that you process things differently.
Yeah.
And you are putting those adjustments in. You like to hoard things, yeah. Well, and me and Barry, my partner, have both. He's got an ADHD diagnosis as well, and since he's been medicated, we are seeing more autism traits. I don't think he will go and get a diagnosis for autism. We don't know. Maybe one day he will. It shows our ADHD shows up quite differently for us. So he has a need for order and tidiness, and I have a need for hoarding. So but actually, we've been able to accept those differences in each other and not make it personal anymore.
Yes.
We're not deliberately doing that. And I think just bringing it back to the workplace, I think that's the point of what we're talking about today, is that although it is defined as a disability and therefore you do have a legal obligation, if you're listening and you've got a team member that's neurodivergent, you have a legal obligation to put reasonable adjustments in place. This isn't just about the legality of it. It's actually, if you put those adjustments in place and it helps that person thrive, it's better for the business. You get this brilliant brain, and you need to put a bit of flexibility in, I'm being a bit flippant here, but create quiet spaces, have some AI text that maybe transcribes meetings for them, or something whatever those reasonable adjustments might be for that person, but you get so much more out of them.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And I think, the whole, because when I worked at M&S, working from home wasn't really a thing. But because I was really ill, I ended up working from home quite a lot. And I realised how brilliant that was.
Yeah.
For me, because I can shut myself off, concentrate, get my head down. And, that was in 2010. So ages ago, before anything. And I think now, because working from home has become a much bigger thing, but there's this flip now, isn't there, where people are trying to get people
going
back into the office. I think it's really important to recognise that actually some people are much better. You and I, Amy, both had, we didn't stay in roles very long because we have like this itchy feet thing. We have to mix things up. Things have to be new. We have to make changes, and that's who we are. And employers recognising that and seeing that. So it's not just about recognising it as a disability and understanding what you need to do to make, to fit the law. It's kind of recognising if you've got someone that's high performing in your team, making those accommodations that are going to work for them to keep them interested in the job.
And ultimately retain them, right, in the business. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in. And I think actually, if I think back, because I was a bit of a, I went and did different things. But in my last job, which was in marketing insight department, it was like a big department and we serviced the whole of the UK business. I tended to move around every year onto a different category. And that's one thing that, like I'm thinking about like big manufacturers or in retail, like you're able to do that a little bit more, aren't you? And I can remember at the time being a bit like, oh God, they've moved me again. But actually it kept me in that job longer than any other job I'd done because the interest was there, kind of thing. So should we talk about some of the kind of practical strategies that people can use? Actually, before we do that, like obviously I mentioned the Equality Act, but also it's just thinking about I recognise that it is it can be really difficult. I've coached some people that have got, a diagnosis in their teams and that feel like sometimes that is used as an excuse, and it should never ever be used as an excuse, like almost like playing the neurodiversity or neurodivergence card. This is not about that. It's not, people still need to be able to do their job and, if they're not capable of doing their job. So it's quite clean cut. That isn't what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes me feel uncomfortable, because people take advantage of things like that.
Yeah. But not everybody does. And if you have one person that does that, deal with that one person. Don't change the policy of your whole business based on the fact that there's going to be, get the right disciplinary in place for those people. But you shouldn't be discriminating against people because of their neurodivergence. It fits within all of that. But some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in terms of reasonable adjustments and some of that, there's lots of tech out there that can help people and stuff now. There is a government scheme called Access to Work scheme, which is through the Department of Work and Pensions, that you can apply for grants for these things. So I have Access to Work. So I've had some ADHD coaching and I get some support in my business that is through Access to Work. But anybody that identifies as neurodivergent can also apply for that through their workplace. So it's just worth mentioning that, because if you're sitting here thinking, that's going to cost money, you may be able to get a grant to help. And it can be up to like 80 grand a year per person. So it's not, to be sniffed at.
They've never responded to mine though.
I don't know what to say, Lucy. Have you checked?
Yes.
Have you checked your junk mail?
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone from the Department of Work and Pensions listening.
So practical strategies, I talked about that physical environment, didn't I? So examples of that might be, like open plan is not for everyone. Like I know it's more, it increases collaboration and stuff, but can you create areas where, like I know at the head office where I used to work, they had that, And then there were other desks that had like the soundproofing around them and
Yeah,
stuff.
I think more modern open plan offices are like that. I can think of one that I go to, which is actually really good, that has like little nooks and crannies. And
Yeah. Yeah, we need that, don't we? You need that kind of mixture. You know, are there places where people can go and decompress? You know, is there a bit of an outdoor space that people can go and do that? Tiny things can make a big difference. And things like letting people know that it is okay to wear headphones, or you know, agreeing as a team what is acceptable, you know, if people need to blank out that noise or whatever. So really thinking about like workstations and what's going to help an individual in their workstation. And if you do, you know, the hot desk. So I'm thinking back to, you know, when I was saying about hot desking and stuff, there were certain people in the team at that time that were adamant that they were not going to hot desk because they were office based all of the time, and they did keep their desks, and they, you know, like put their plant on and stuff like that. And I could, you know, at the time thinking, oh, flipping it, I get it now. I get why they needed that, and accepting that some people need that security of knowing they're going to be sitting in this.
The idea of I can't remember, like I would have been one of those people because I like to make my nest.
Yeah, totally. No, I hated it. And this is way back. I remember because I was in a seat where I did have my back to the room, and I didn't like that at all.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have one of those. I used to have a mirror on my computer, you know, like a reversing mirror, so that I could see who was coming up behind me.
I have that paranoid feeling. It's like
Yeah.
me and Sam were talking about, I always feel like someone's going to push me onto the tube lines. Always.
Yeah,
I have to stand
yeah.
with my back to the... I've always felt that paranoia.
We are, you know, opening up all our neurodivergent traits out here right now. But, you know, it's thinking about those things, but also then thinking about how you communicate. Not everybody wants to communicate in the same way. So actually, how do you adapt your communication style? You know, do people need things in advance so that they've got time to process and think? There's things like having a one-to-one conversation with somebody to check understanding versus in a room full of people. There's loads of stuff that we've learned as well, isn't it, about like eye contact. We used to always say you must always give eye contact. Well, actually, that can sometimes be really hard for certain people. So, you know, this is all about having conversations with people about what do they need. And if you open up that conversation, you ask people, then get more likely to be able to share and say, do you know what? I really struggle with eye contact. Like, can you not stare at me, kind of thing. So, but there's also, you know, using tools to help simplify documents, highlighting key points. Like somebody sends a big long email and it's got no breaks in it and no highlighted bits and whatever. I really struggle to process it. I need like bold and underlined and stuff like that. So thinking about that. But normalizing that it's okay to have open conversations about what you need to be at your best at work. And I did a team day about 18 months ago now, and it was all about kind of what do you need to be at your best. And we came up with these journals called My User Manual, and like actually started to open up the conversations, like get people to really think about
That's a brilliant idea.
How I manage distractions, what my workspace needs to be like, what my strengths are, this, that, and the other. And it's almost like a booklet to help people. Actually, it's on Amazon if people want to buy it. I never really advertise it, but I created it and it's sale on Amazon. But it's a good way of helping people reflect what helps them as individuals, but then getting people to share. Because I think this is the thing is sometimes if you are neurodivergent and diagnosed, or you're not diagnosed, you don't even know, but you just know you're different and you need different things to other people. It's really hard to open up that conversation. So it's quite a good way
That's a brilliant idea.
Being more aware of it. Maybe it's something I should promote more.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, like hearing what other people need.
Yeah.
Because you assume that everybody, well, I've always assumed that everybody is like me.
Yeah.
And then when you realise that they're not, it's like, oh, right, that works. Because I've never understood why people would wear headphones, because I can't have like any noise when I'm working. I like silence.
Whereas I've got a couple of Spotify playlists, one's called Focus Flow, and I have to, if I really need to get into something, I put that on really low. It can't be any music that I want to sing to that's got any words, but I have to have that. And if I don't have that, if it's silent, I can't get anything done. So this is the thing, we're all different.
Yeah.
And actually being able to understand that's really important. So thinking about that and creating that psychological safety where people can talk about it. And if you want some of those books, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I'd completely forgotten you could buy that on Amazon. I promise you I have. It sounds like I'm doing some sort of selfish pitch here. I promise you
I've never
I've
heard of
completely
it, so she's
forgotten it.
definitely not.
And then actually there's so much technology out there that can help you. So I do a lot now. So we both use transcription services, don't we? So I will think out loud and, it will transcribe it into text. You can even just a Word document. You can open a Word document. So there's lots of technology out there that can help other people. And this is where, if you wanted, like, say, I use Otter AI and it's like 80 quid a year or something, that's the sort of thing that Access to Work will pay for, because it's actually making sure somebody can do their job properly. So thinking about all the technology that's out there that you could use. But I think the biggest thing for me is just about creating a culture that has empathy and understanding, that not everybody's the same. I think when we had Amy Polly on last year, she was basically saying, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And actually getting some proper training. And, I know of people that can do neurodiversity training. So if you want that, then get in touch with me and I can put you in touch with them, so that people understand it better and understand that they're going to have unconscious biases and all of that sort of stuff. Do things like this week, where it is Neurodiversity Celebration Week, celebrate our differences, celebrate all of those things. And it helps to just normalize this stuff a little bit more. And actually, one of the things that, I sort of touched on it earlier when I was talking about where I had a day of hyper focus and then I'd be like absolutely knackered and in bed the next day. That's one of the one of the challenges of neurodivergence. But another one is where we feel like we have to go into work and have a mask on because we've got to fit into the corporate mold all day, and how exhausting that is. And how actually, if people with neurodivergence are allowed to just take that mask off a little bit and not have to make chit chat because it's the socially acceptable thing to do, and not have to not have headphones on when they really just need to block out the noise, or vice versa, you're going to get so much more out of those people. They're going to feel so much more productive, and it really helps you to thrive as those people to thrive as individuals. Because I didn't realise, and I know you feel the same, Lucy, for years we were masking, and we talked about it on another episode around us dialing up certain parts of us. So you dialed up your kind of like extroversion and, bubbliness and stuff like that. And it's exhausting. And for, whatever that looks like for anybody, we all mask, everybody, whether you're neurodivergent or not. So actually just allowing people to be themselves a little bit more at work, going to get more out of them, because they're not going to be as knackered in trying to hide the true them underneath it all. So I wanted to kind of leave you with 3 kind of bite-sized actions of things that you can do, having listened to this today. So I think the first one is just to start opening up that conversation about neurodiversity within your teams. And you don't even have to label it as that. Just label it as what do you need, or what do we all need to be at our best at work? That is a conversation that you could have in a team meeting. And so that's the first one. The second one is have a think about the physical environment at work. How neuro-inclusive is that? But also the culture in the business that you're within, and what can you do to affect cultural change if it's needed around that environment. And then the third thing would be to commit to upskilling yourself, getting some staff training, getting the team much more aware of neurodivergence and neurodiversity. And like I said, I've got partner companies that I work with that do things around neurodiversity. So if you do want some, being put in that direction, then get in touch with me. But I think the point is, it's okay to start small, just start those conversations. Like every step is going to add to that inclusivity, and it will make a real difference. And, I think the most important thing for me in recording this episode was, I think it's important to know that it's a legal requirement and the Equality Act is part of it. But this isn't just about complying with the law. It's about creating a workplace where everyone can shine in their own way. And I think that's really, really important.
And the episodes that we did last year are really good. I mean, I think about the episode we did with Charlie Jenkins a lot.
Yes.
That's one of my favourite episodes.
Yeah, and actually it was one of our high download episodes, wasn't it? And it was kind of what we were talking about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were talking about they'd been in one job and found it really, really hard, and then moved to Asda, who put all of that, all the adjustmants in place,
it's a brilliant
and they were thriving.
example. Brilliant example of giving someone what they need to do a brilliant job.
Yeah, so they were episodes 143 to 146 that we did on neurodivergence last year. So even if the starting place is to share those episodes with people around you so that we're starting to have the conversation more, then I think this has been an episode well worth recording. And let us know, as always.
Yeah,
I like a LinkedIn message, so let me know
and
if this has resonated.
Rate and review. Amy likes a friendly message, but we love rates and reviews.
They make all the difference. So go onto your podcast app and give us 5 stars, and also write something as well, because it all helps us reach more foodies like you. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.